Hey everyone, this is Darcinova here. This time I'm going to review a comic which I wanted to review for a while, but I didn't get around to it. I essentially just sit back one day and decided just to read the whole thing. Well, not all of it, but I read most of it in one day. This is essentially everything that's contained in the second volume of the IDW collection. So think of this as multiple reviews in one. Now, there's multiple story arcs I'm going to talk about and some micro one shot comics. This basically has issues 13 through 20 and some micro one shots of April, Casey, and Baxter Stockman and Krang. Now, the benefit about getting these, which I've talked about I don't think I talked about my first review, is these collect them in chronological order. So there'll be no confusion when you read these. Now, of course, the art can vary from time to time depending on who's the artist. But the thing is, the writing is really solid in this series. It has been, since the very beginning. So essentially, the first where this volume starts is basically Casey Jones' micro series. You learn about his past, about his abusive father, and essentially it's a mini story arc, actually, which starts in his issue in a way. Well, it officially starts in issue 13, but you get more of a backstory. I'm pretty sure the micro one shot was released after or during the arc. And how's the artwork? Well, amazing. Really love the art for this issue. Just going to show you a panel here. If you're a Casey Jones fan and you hated the way he's portrayed in the cartoon, I'm referring to the current one that's airing, this does him justice. A troubled youth, why he's a vigilante, and why he acts the way he does. This, to me, is a teenage Casey done right. Or maybe I could say college student, but I think he seems to be like a teenager to me. Anyway, of course, the issue after that is kind of a step down artwork-wise, but to me, like I said, the writing is what matters the most. And you learn something interesting about, of course, there's other two subplots. The plots are going on at the same time with Karai and her grandfather, not having faith in her at all. The artwork is pretty good. It's just not as good as the last issue, in my opinion. And what I really love about the next issue, which you'll learn something about Splinter, that him and Raphael are a lot alike. Hamato Yoshi. Of course, if you read before this, you'd know that he had an anger problem back in feudal Japan, which is where Raphael gets his anger from, which actually I love that. It doesn't explicitly say that, but it's heavily implied. That story, I would give it a classic rating. I think it's really good. The thing I really love about this comic series is, the stories. It gets progressively better. And that's essentially the first story arc in this. Of course, the second story basically starts up the second story arc, which like the Casey one was probably published. So I'm saying probably because I'm not 100% sure during the story arc or afterwards. This basically focuses on April. The artwork is pretty good in this issue. Though I'd be lying, it isn't jarring. In one issue, the art you see, the characters look completely different from the next. But like I said, the stories are what matter. And considering a comic that's been running for this long, I'm impressed. The artist actually, as long as the characters I know with who they are, I don't mind the artwork changing from issue to issue. Now This you will learn, what happened with Flat on Slash and who unleashed him in the first place. Who is Slash? Well, if you're familiar with the '87 cartoon, that's the character who is essentially he's a mutant like the turtles themselves, but unlike you know that crappy version of the character, he's actually scary. He's and this also deals with various issues based with the turtles need to find a new home because living with April and Casey is dangerous. They're putting their lives in danger, so they seek out a new lair. And this also kind of develops the characters of Leonardo and Michelangelo to a certain degree. I'm not going to give out what that does, but the artwork in this arc I think is really good. Like here's some panels here to prove that. The conclusion is bittersweet. I will say that much. Just to showcase how good this artwork is. Now it appears that Slash has got killed, but he didn't. Of course, why am I spoiling the ending? Well, because when I talk about him in the future, I have to mention I'd be spoiling the ending for this arc anyway. And of course, in a comic like this, why would you kill off a villain that just appeared when nothing's been done with them yet? Well, that, my friends, would not be a good idea. One thing I really love about this, well, I'm pretty sure these are variants for each comic cover. It kind of shows you like a classic Mirage style cover for each of these issues. It's really cool. Now, the Fugitoid, which leads up to the longest arc of this volume, who is reimagined in a way that 2003 fans will be familiar. Professor Honeycutt and 87 fans will be familiar with the Neutrinos. They actually kind of combined those two characters into one, and it created a great story out of it. Now, the Fugitoid story, you essentially learn who Professor Honeycutt is. I'm pretty sure this was published after the arc was finished. You learn, what things are like in Dimension X, and the resistance with the neutrinos, and his origin and how he got to Earth. He even learned something very interesting, though I'm not going to lie, reading this would actually spoil who he ultimately looks like in the actual story arc. But I don't think it takes away from the story. So if you read the story, like after you read the story arc, it's like, wow, they just spoiled a plot twist. So yes, of course the artwork is really good, which I forgot to show you, which has been consistent. In this version, he's actually responsible for the turtle's mutation. Of course, this is probably my favorite arc of the entire volume, is the one with the neutrinos. Of course, this is gonna not 87ers may not, take too kindly to this, but the neutrinos, let's face it, they were pretty one-dimensional, nothing to them. All they were was a bunch of punk teenagers that all they want to do was have fun, nothing to it. Well, this version, they are reimagined in a way where they're kind of cool. The resistance fighters fighting to protect their planet. This is probably my favorite comic cover of the entire IDW run. Completely badass. I may actually have that as my thumbnail for this video because that's just how awesome it is. Of course, this also showcased what a great villain Krang is in this universe. Oh man, what a great villain. Of course, the artwork for this arc is pretty good. Of course, if you've seen the '87 series, you'll know who these characters are immediately. Of course, I don't want to give too much away, but toward the ending of this arc will essentially sets things up for the arcs to come. Which, yes, of course, the epilogue, which of this arc, which is the Krang micro comic, which you learn about what kind of character Krang was. In this continuity, you learn about his origin, and honestly, this changed my perspective on Krang in this universe. A lot more interesting than his '87 counterpart. My God, IDW takes like characters that were boring, not interesting, and just reimagines them in just great ways. Krang, terrible villain. You know, in the '87 version, terrible villain, awful. I'm sorry. I'll maybe do a video in the future, but he's a terrible villain. Nothing compared to the villain that you see here. In this, you learn about his past, how he was lazy, he was a spoiled brat, and in order to prove himself, his father wrong because his father didn't think he was worthy. He couldn't do anything. This is one of the moments where Krang was a complete badass. I love this version of Krang. Honestly, he is such an awesome villain. He is probably my favorite villain of this entire series so far. It's like, why did the 2012 series reimagine Krang in this way instead of having stupid fucking brains that say we're Krang? What a wasted opportunity to reimagine such a potentially great villain. It's like, I never thought Krang would be cool, but look at this. He's fighting these guys and he fucking kills this dude. He doesn't even have a fucking body. He fucking kills him. Fucking badass. He fucking takes over the planet. It's like, holy shit. This made me love this character. And I cannot wait to read more. You know what? I think they should turn this into a series. Fuck the current series that's going on. Cancel it. And just do it well, maybe not cancel it, but next time you do a series, use this as a basis. It's just when I think this comic was good, then when I didn't think it can meet my expectations, it gets even better. Of course, Baxter Stockman, which you learn some more about him. Not really that interesting, to be honest with you. His origin is similar to to Krang in a lot of ways, and honestly, yeah, daddy issues and the artwork is pretty bad. Though it does show you case how intelligent he is, but I don't think it just does anything to me to make him into a better villain. Honestly, it shows how intelligent he is, but honestly, I just don't find him that interesting. The story's okay. It's kind of forgettable. Probably my least favorite of the micro one shots. And the highlight of this volume, probably, of course, it's not my favorite story arc, but it's a mini series that was published, which explains the origin of the Foot Clan in this universe. And this is, of course, in terms of artwork, this is my favorite of all of them. I just love the art style. Like this scene here is fucking awesome. If only Nickelodeon would do what DC does and turn some of this into a freaking original animated film. This would be amazing. This completely explains the origin of the Foot Clan, which they reimagined them in a way that's like, holy crap. Who would thought that they make the Foot Clan such interesting characters? Of even even explains, certain things that are like it's linked to the Turtles' origins too, and it's just some of the best art I've seen in this. It's like this. The more I read this series, the more I convinced that this is better than anything Marvel and DC is currently putting out. Honestly, especially Marvel. I mean, the writing is really good, and you're just looking forward to read more when you read this, comic. The last story arc of this issue, which is a not issue, this huge fucking omnibus, is so good, so good. And I'm just, this isn't like one of these stories that are going to become relevant later. This mini series, is an origin story, for the Foot Clan. It even sets up for things that are going to come later. Yes, whoever does the art for this, I want him to do more, because I think he's probably the best artist for this series. Follow the Foot Clan, and is such a great story. Actually, it does so much to enrich this universe. And actually, it turns this version of Shredder, and as of right now, is probably my favorite version of the character. Honestly, he's just such an evil bastard. It's like there's nothing I can not say that isn't good about this story. Now, my final verdict, which I'm probably might as well show you one of my favorite. It's like, yeah. Let's show you one last thing of this. Now, my verdict. The Fall of the Foot Clan, I'd give it a masterpiece rating, even though it's not my actually, yeah, it's not my favorite, story of this volume. It is probably one of my favorite Ninja Turtle stories. And honestly, after reading this, I am convinced this is the best thing that's ever happened to this franchise in a long time. This is the best thing that's happened to it at this moment. If you do not like the 2012 series and you're not happy how it's going, and you're one of those fans that but still want more Ninja Turtles, check these comics out. There's 4 of these omnibuses as of this video. Even though they're a little pricey, they're definitely worth your time. I highly recommend it. Next time I talk about this, I'm gonna go do Volume 3, which most of it covers the City Fall story arc. So, may we all live long and prosper, and see you guys next time. Peace out.